At my sister's funeral, I got a text from an unknown number. I'm alive, don't trust our parents. The scent of lilies was so thick it felt like I was drowning in it. As I stood beside my sister Usha's coffin, my hands were shaking so badly I had to clench them into fists. The priest's voice was a low, meaningless drone in the background. Everyone around me was weeping, their sorrow a heavy blanket in the air, but my own tears felt trapped behind a wall of shock. Just as I thought my legs would give out, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A sharp jarring vibration against my thigh. I pulled it out, needing any distraction from the polished wood of the coffin in front of me. The screen lit up with a message from a number I didn't recognize. My eyes scanned the words, and my heart didn't just stop, it felt like it shattered. I'm alive, don't trust our parents. My breath hitched. The world tilted, the faces of the mourners blurring into a meaningless swirl of black. Was this some kind of sick joke? A cruel prank played at the worst possible moment? I stared at the screen, the glowing words burning into my mind. The number was real. The words were clear. My heart hammered against my ribs so violently I was sure everyone could hear it. I looked from the phone to the coffin, then to our parents. My mother stood rigid, her face a mask of polite grief. My father's jaw was set, his eyes distant and cold. There were no tears, no raw pain, just a strange, chilling emptiness. The message wasn't a prank. It was a warning, and I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that my next move could change everything. After the funeral, the house was filled with a hollow silence that was louder than any scream. I tried to act normal, to move through the days as if my world hadn't been fractured by a single text message, but the message was always there, a constant echo in my mind. I wanted so desperately to believe it was a lie, a terrible, twisted fantasy. Yet, every time I looked at my parents, a cold dread confirmed my fears. My mother, who once held me for hours when I was sad, now offered hugs that were stiff and fleeting. Her eyes would dart away from mine, quick and cold, as if she were afraid I could see right through her. My father became a ghost in his own home. He was always on his phone, his voice a low murmur as he paced in the garden late at night, ending his calls the moment he saw me approach. At first, I told myself it was just grief, that it changed people in strange ways. But the signs became too sharp, too deliberate to ignore. I started noticing them whispering behind closed doors. Their voices were not sad, but sharp and urgent. One night, I pressed my ear against the wall of their bedroom and heard my father's muffled voice say, "We must keep it hidden. She must not find out." The words sent a shiver down my spine. I knocked on the door, and when my father opened it, his face was arranged into a calm smile that didn't reach his eyes. That fake smile was more terrifying than any anger. My mother's distance grew in other ways, too. She refused to talk about Asha. Whenever a well-meaning neighbor brought up a fond memory, she would cut them off with a polite but firm change of subject. When I asked if I could go through Usha's things, just to feel close to her, my mother's eyes hardened. "It's better you forget," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. That wasn't the response of a grieving mother. It was the response of someone trying to control a narrative. The house itself began to feel like a prison. Usha's room, once a place of laughter and shared secrets, was now locked tight. The key was gone. I remembered how we used to run in and out of each other's rooms without a second thought. Now, that door was a forbidden boundary. Sometimes, I would stand outside it, pressing my ear against the cold wood, listening for something, anything. But there was only a heavy, suffocating silence. A silence that felt like it was guarding secrets. Their gazes changed as well. They no longer looked at me with parental affection. They watched me. Their eyes followed my every move, filled with a quiet suspicion, as if they knew my mind was racing, and were silently daring me to ask the questions they never wanted to answer. The story of Usha's accidental fall, which I had accepted through a fog of grief, now seemed like a poorly constructed lie. Every whisper, every locked door, and every cold stare was another crack in its foundation. Something was terribly wrong. And if that text was true, my parents weren't just grieving. They were hiding something monstrous. Days turned into a week, but the message from the unknown number was burned into my memory. I'd read it 100 times, trying to convince myself it was a mistake. Then, one evening, as I sat alone in my room, my phone lit up again. The same number? This time, the message was even more chilling. "Be careful. They are watching you." My hands started to shake. I looked over my shoulder, my room suddenly feeling unsafe. A deep fear settled in my chest, cold and heavy, but a fierce curiosity burned through it. I had to know more. With trembling fingers, I typed back a single word. "Who?" The reply was almost instant. "Your parents." I dropped my phone on the bed as if it were on fire. My body went rigid. I wanted to scream that it wasn't true, that they loved me, that they would never hurt me, but the warnings aligned perfectly with their strange behavior. Before I could process the thought, another text came through. My name is Sefu. I knew Asha. If you want the truth, trust me, but don't let them know we are talking. My heart pounded against my ribs. Sefu. The name meant nothing to me. Was this the same person from the funeral? Was this a trap? 100 questions swirled in my head. Where was Asha? What really happened? But a paralyzing fear kept my fingers from typing any of them. Then I remembered my parents' cold stares, their hushed conversations, the locked room, and the late-night calls. Everything Sefu said fit perfectly. Over the next few days, the messages continued. They were always short, cryptic, and deeply unsettling. Don't look in their eyes too long. They are planning something. Ask about the night she disappeared. Watch their faces. Each text was like a small stone dropped into the calm-looking surface of my life, sending ripples of doubt and fear spreading outwards. Who was this Sefu, and how did he know these intimate details about my family? Yet, he mentioned things I had never told anyone. Small observations that made his words impossible to ignore. At night, I lay awake, staring at the dark ceiling, replaying Sefu's warnings. The tiny spark of hope that Asha might be alive was constantly at war with the terrifying fear of what my parents might be capable of. Sometimes I would hover my thumb over the block button, wanting to silence the voice that was turning my world upside down. But then another message would arrive, and the need to know the truth was too strong to resist. I felt trapped in a nightmare, caught between the two people I was supposed to trust most in the world and a mysterious stranger who claimed to know the truth. If Sefu was telling the truth, then my parents were not my protectors. They were my captors, and their love was a cage built on lies. Deep down, I knew I was getting closer to a truth so dark it might shatter me completely. One afternoon, the house was unnervingly quiet. My parents had gone out, and I was left alone with my thoughts and Sefu's echoing warnings. I found myself standing in front of Usha's locked bedroom door, an invisible force pulling me toward it. A gut feeling told me that whatever secrets this house held, they started in this room. My search for the key was frantic but quiet. I checked my mother's jewelry box, my father's desk, every coat pocket hanging in the hall. Finally, in my father's study, tucked inside an old, dusty envelope, I found it. A small silver key. My hand trembled as I slid it into the lock. It turned with a soft click that sounded deafeningly loud in the silent house. The room smelled of her favorite perfume and old books, as if she had just stepped out for a moment. Her clothes were folded neatly in her closet. Her textbooks were stacked on her desk, and her favorite blue scarf was draped over the back of her chair. A wave of grief washed over me, so powerful it almost made me turn back. But I forced myself to search. I looked under the bed, and that's when I saw it. A dark leather notebook hidden beneath the mattress. Usha's journal. With shaking hands, I opened it. The first few pages were filled with her familiar, bubbly handwriting, detailing everyday teenage life complaints about school, dreams of traveling, notes about friends. But as I read on, the tone shifted. The words grew darker, more frantic. Asha wrote about strange things she was noticing at home. Our parents whispering about money, her father taking secret meetings with men she'd never seen before. One entry made my blood run cold. If anything happens to me, it will not be an accident. I think they are planning something. I pressed a hand to my mouth to stifle a sob, my breathing ragged. I flipped through the pages faster, desperate for more. Another entry read, I don't trust them anymore. They want to control everything, even me. I need a way out. It felt as if Asha was speaking to me from beyond the grave, warning me. As I kept reading, I realized she had been preparing for something. There were small, cryptic notes, addresses that made no sense, and several mentions of a friend who was helping her. Could that friend be Seth? The more I read, the clearer the horrifying picture became. Asha hadn't simply died in an accident. She had uncovered something dangerous about our parents, something they were willing to do anything to protect. She had been desperate to escape. The funeral, the coffin, the grief, it was all a performance. A lie. Clutching the journal to my chest, I felt a new resolve harden within me. I would not stop until I knew everything. For the first time, I was certain Usha's death had been staged, and my parents were at the dark heart of it all. I couldn't just sit on this explosive secret. The journal felt like it was burning a hole under my mattress, and Sefu's warnings grew more urgent. One evening, after my parents left for a dinner party, I sent Sefu a message. Where do I start? His reply came in minutes. Go to the old market. Ask for the name written on page 47. I snatched the journal and flipped to the page. There, scribbled in the margin in Usha's handwriting, was a single name, Karam. I had no idea who he was, but it was a lead. The next morning, I told my parents I was going to a friend's house to study. They didn't argue, but I felt their watchful eyes on me as I left. My heart pounded with every beat as I rode the bus into the bustling city. The market was a chaotic maze of sounds and smells. I moved through the narrow alleyways, my voice barely a whisper as I asked vendors about Karam. Most just shook their heads, but a few shot me nervous glances before turning away. Finally, an old man selling spices leaned in close and murmured, "Don't say that name so loud around here." Before I could ask why, my phone buzzed. It was Sefu. "Be careful. Someone is following you." My whole body went cold. I scanned the crowd and saw him, a tall man in a dark coat, pretending to look at his phone, but his eyes were fixed on me. Panic seized me, and I quickly ducked into a denser part of the market, the journal clutched tightly under my scarf. Another text arrived. "Turn left. Go to the alley. Trust me." My feet moved on their own, my breath coming in short gasps. I slipped into a dark, narrow lane between two buildings. A woman was waiting there, her face half hidden by a scarf. "You're Usha's sister," she said, her voice soft but urgent. I froze, unable to speak. "Your sister came here," the woman continued. "She was looking for Karam too. Your parents didn't want her to find the truth." "What truth?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. The woman glanced nervously over her shoulder. "It's not safe. Go before they see you." I hurried away, my heart pounding in my ears. As I emerged back onto the main street, my phone flashed with another message from Sefu. "They know you're searching. Don't go home yet." Fear coiled in my stomach. If home wasn't safe, where could I go? But one thing was clear now. I was walking the same dangerous path Asha had. I was closer than ever to the truth, and there was no turning back. Following another clue from Usha's journal, I found myself at a small, dimly lit cafe near the bus station, late the next afternoon. The journal mentioned a name, Lena, someone who was supposed to be a trusted friend. With my scarf pulled low, I took a seat in a corner booth, my nerves frayed. A few minutes later, a young woman with sharp, restless eyes walked in. Our gazes met across the room, and she seemed to freeze for a second before walking directly to my table. "You're Usha's sister," she whispered, sliding into the seat across from me. My heart leaped into my throat. "Yes, please, tell me what you know." She was Lena, Usha's friend. She leaned forward, her voice dropping so low I had to strain to hear her. "Your sister is not dead," she said, the words hitting me with the force of a physical blow. "She planned it. It was the only way she could get out. Your parents were trying to control her entire life, force her into a future she didn't want, all to protect their secrets. When she refused to stay quiet, she knew she had to disappear. She faked her death." My breath caught in my chest. It felt surreal, impossible, and yet it explained everything. The empty funeral, my parents' coldness, Sefu's warnings. "Do you know where she is?" I pressed, my voice cracking. Lena shook her head sadly. "No, she didn't tell me. She said the less I knew, the safer I'd be. But I helped her. I helped her get away so she could finally be free. She trusted someone else to guide her from there." "Who?" I asked, my mind racing. Lena's eyes softened with a hint of a smile. "A man named Sefu. If he's been texting you, then he's keeping his promise. He swore he would protect both of you, no matter what." Hearing Sefu's name from her lips sent a wave of relief through me. Until that moment, a part of me had still feared he was part of a trap. But this was confirmation. He was real. He was on our side. I finally felt I could trust him completely. Lena reached across the table and gently touched my hand. "Your sister loves you more than anything. She never wanted to involve you in this. But maybe this was meant to be. If you keep going, you'll find her. But be so careful. Your parents will do anything to protect their empire of lies." When I left the cafe, the world felt different. The weight on my shoulders was still heavy, but it was no longer the weight of grief. It was the weight of truth. Asha had staged an elaborate escape, and Sefu was her guardian angel. I was no longer just chasing answers. I was following the path my brave sister had laid out for me. And I was ready to follow it all the way to the end. Returning home was like stepping back into enemy territory. Lena's words replayed in my head. "Your parents will do anything to protect their lies." I knew I couldn't confront them directly, that would be far too dangerous. Instead, I had to chip away at their fortress of secrets, piece by piece, while pretending to be the grieving, obedient daughter. That night at dinner, I decided to test the waters. "Mama," I began, my voice deliberately casual, "what really happened the night of Usha's accident?" It all seems like such a blur. My mother's spoon paused halfway to her lips. My father's eyes shot to me, sharp and cold as ice. We told you everything, Nuru, he said, his voice flat and hard. She slipped. It was a tragic accident. Stop asking. The harshness in his tone was all the confirmation I needed. I forced a small apologetic smile and said nothing more, but inside, I knew their reaction was a confession. Over the next few days, I became a spy in my own home. While my parents were out, I would sneak into my father's office, my phone ready. I took pictures of everything. Bank statements showing massive sums of money being transferred to names I didn't recognize, and an old half-torn letter in Usha's handwriting that had been hidden away. Every discovery added another layer to their deceit. I continued to probe them with carefully chosen questions. Why is Usha's room still locked if she's really gone? I asked one afternoon, feigning innocent curiosity. My mother's face turned to stone. Because I said so. Stop behaving like a child. Another time, I asked, did Asha ever mention someone named Karam? My father's hand tightened around his water glass so hard I thought it would shatter. He quickly and clumsily changed the subject. Their paranoia grew with each question. I noticed them watching me more closely, their whispers stopping abruptly whenever I entered a room. I even caught my mother going through my school bag when she thought I was asleep. I started hiding my phone in a new place every night, terrified they would find my messages with Sefu. The tension in the house became a thick, suffocating fog. One evening, my father sat me down, his stare long and penetrating. You've changed, Nuru, he said, his voice deceptively calm. You're not the same quiet girl you used to be. Tell me, what have you been doing? His eyes searched my face for any hint of defiance. I forced myself to look down at my hands, hiding the storm of emotions raging inside me. I'm just trying to heal, Papa, I replied softly. But I knew this was just the beginning. The walls they had built were cracking, and they knew I was the one holding the hammer. One wrong move could expose me, but one right move could finally bring me to the truth. Lying awake one night, my heart heavy with the secrets I carried, I wished for just one thing. To see Asha, to know for sure that she was safe. As if fate itself heard my plea. My phone buzzed on the nightstand just after midnight. A new message. Meet me at the old train station tomorrow at noon. Come alone. Asha. I sat bolt upright in bed, my hands shaking as I reread the name. Asha, could it really be her? The next day, I slipped out of the house, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. The old train station was deserted, a forgotten relic coated in dust and silence. Every footstep echoed through the vast, empty hall, amplifying my fear and anticipation. I walked deeper inside, my eyes scanning the shadows. Then, a figure emerged from behind a pillar. I stopped dead in my tracks. The woman stepped forward, her face partially hidden by a scarf, but as she slowly pulled it down, my breath caught in my throat. It was her, Asha, alive and real. For a long moment, we just stared at each other, the silence thick with 1,000 unspoken words. Then, tears streamed down my face and I ran, crashing into her arms. We held on to each other, a desperate, fierce embrace, as if making up for all the time we thought we had lost. I thought you were gone, I sobbed into her shoulder. Asha pulled back, her own eyes shining with tears. I had to disappear, Nuru. It was the only way to escape them. We sat on a dusty, broken bench, and Asha told me everything. She spoke of how our parents had tried to control her every move, forcing her towards a life she didn't want, all to maintain their perfect image. She had discovered the truth about their money, how it was stolen, how they were blackmailing people. If I had stayed, they would have broken me, she whispered, her voice filled with a pain I had never heard before. So, I staged my death. Sefu and Lena were the only ones who helped me. But why warn me now? I asked. Asha took my hands in hers, her grip tight. Because they started watching you the same way they watched me. You're not safe anymore. We can't fight them alone, Nuru, but together, together, we can expose them for who they really are. For the first time in months, a wave of pure hope washed over me. We weren't victims anymore. We were fighters. We began to plan, our whispers filling the empty station, devising a strategy to gather the final proof we needed. We agreed she would remain hidden until the time was right. I would be her eyes and ears inside the house. As the sun began to set, she hugged me one last time, and melted back into the shadows. I watched her go, my tears dry and my heart steady. I was no longer alone. My sister was back, and together, we were going to take back our lives. Our meetings were clandestine and risky, held in forgotten parks and quiet libraries, always with Sefu coordinating from a distance. With Asha on the outside and me on the inside, we began to construct our case. I moved through the house like a ghost, my calm demeanor a perfect cover. I photographed every document in my father's safe, recorded their late-night phone calls, and documented every lie they told. Asha, with Sefu's help, took the information and connected the dots. The picture that emerged was darker than I could have imagined. Our parents were involved in a large-scale fraud operation, funneling stolen money through a web of secret accounts. The bank statements I found proved they had millions hidden away. I also uncovered letters my father had written, filled with threats, blackmailing business partners into silence. My parents weren't just controlling, they were criminals. One night, Sefu sent a crucial message, placed the recorder under the dining table. They're meeting someone important tonight. My hands shook as I taped the tiny device in place. Later, hidden in my room, I listened live as their hushed voices filled the recording. We have to make sure Nuru doesn't find out the truth, my father said, his voice laced with cold venom. If she does, we'll handle her just like we plan to handle Asha. Hearing those words, hearing them admit they were willing to get rid of me, sent a chill through my entire body. But it was the final, undeniable proof we needed. Asha took the evidence, the recordings, the documents, the testimonies from other victims that Sefu had gathered and built an airtight file. With Sefu's connections, the information was anonymously delivered to trusted lawyers and investigative reporters. Within weeks, the fallout began. Whispers turned into headlines. People who had once admired our parents now looked at them with suspicion. Their empire, built on deceit, began to crumble. Business partners cut ties. Friends stopped calling. And the press began a constant vigil outside our house, shouting questions they couldn't answer. I watched it all unfold from within, my heart heavy but resolute. My parents became trapped animals, lashing out at each other, their paranoia growing with every passing day. They couldn't understand how their perfect world was collapsing around them. But I knew, for the first time in my life, I held the power. The truth was a tidal wave, and their walls of lies were finally being washed away. I stood on the porch of the house that had once been my prison. But the fear was gone. With Asha standing beside me, her hand firmly in mine, I felt a strength I never knew I possessed. The final blow had landed. Our parents' secrets were laid bare for the world to see, their reputation destroyed, their power broken forever. The legal battle was swift. The stolen money, the hidden properties, everything they had tried to hoard was rightfully returned to us. It was never about the wealth, it was about justice. It was proof that we had won back our lives, our freedom, and our future. Walking away from that house for the last time, the sisters left their past behind. But there was one final piece of the puzzle. Sefu met us at the city limits, ready to say his goodbyes. It was then that the greatest twist was revealed. He hadn't just been a guide. He had a connection to our past. He was the son of a man our parents had betrayed and ruined years ago. A man who had lost everything to their greed. Instead of seeking personal revenge, he had watched from the shadows for years, waiting for the right moment to help the daughters of his enemy find their own justice. His quiet strength and his unwavering protection had been our shield. The realization left me speechless. He wasn't just an ally. He was the family we had chosen, bound by trust, not blood. You saved us, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. He offered a small, sad smile. No, he said gently, you saved yourselves. I only showed you the way. As the three of us parted ways, heading toward new and unknown chapters, my heart was finally at peace. The journey had been born from fear and betrayal, but it had forged an unbreakable bond between my sister and me. What was once a broken family had been replaced by something stronger, something built on truth and love. Life would not be easy, but I was no longer the scared girl trapped in the shadows. I had faced the darkness head-on and emerged into the light, holding my sister's hand. The long, painful story of lies was finally over, and our story of peace had just begun.